I'm Glenn McGinnis, and this is Outburst. On the program, should private ownership of handguns be phased out in Canada?
Yes.
I don't have any need for one.
I've owned handguns in the past.
I don't think I would get rid of it.
But first, finding a middle ground where Canada's energy-producing capabilities can reach their full potential while at the same time meeting our environmental commitments and targets can be an arduous job. While Canada's oil and gas industry employs thousands, which is of course good for the economy, the environmental risks that may go along with it weighs heavily on legislators and decision makers. So we sent our cameras out to ask Canadians this question.
How could we strike a balance between economic growth and environmental sustainability?
You've got to put the priority to what's eventually going to be the most important. And there's, from my mind, if we're studying the science, there's no question that we only have so much time to repair the earth. So what's that worth? And you've got to start to make a little bit of short-term sacrifices to make sure that the good thing that we have in the earth continues to maintain. So strike that balance. I wouldn't want to have to be the politician that makes those choices.
I just think that everybody needs to take into account that this is our earth and we only have one earth, so we need to think mindfully. Everything needs to be, done with a lot of thought. I'm Indigenous and I know that this is my land and I have to take care of it.
I think you have to look at making the environmental stability economic. I mean, there's got to be ways that they both are going to intersect somewhere. Yeah. You have to find those ways. That's the only way to do it.
Yeah.
Economic growth and environmental sustainability. Well, that's a balance. That's a very delicate balance. Certainly education, to be taught in schools. I mean, there's a lot of curriculum that's probably not as important in schools as is credits, economics, and the environment. It should be well taught because the kids that are growing up now, that generation, needs to know that because they're the future.
By investing in clean technologies and environmentally sustainable technologies and stop investing in oil, stop investing in technologies that aren't good for the environment.
Well, I think what you talk about is carbon taxes and things like that. To try to find the middle of the road is important, but I don't know. It costs money to do that. There's no question about it. But obviously, we want to talk about the future of this planet. Make sure that you're taking care of the environment. The environment, in my opinion, is a very important thing. And I know the economy is driven by obviously the two go hand in hand, right? But I think personally, I would make sure that it's not always out of the pockets of the consumer, because right now the consumers are finding it very difficult. Prices are risen as far as for cost of living. Inflation is up. People just can't afford, and I think you got to find it's a fine line.
I just don't think it's a cut and dry answer. I think there's pros and cons, and it's all interrelated and interconnected. And I mean, you try to fix the economy, you hurt the environment and vice versa. So there has to be some sort of cohesive answer, and I don't know it, unfortunately. So
I think to strike a balance is we need to draw the line on how far do we care about money over the expense of the environment. And if we draw that line and we're able to balance, we want to make money and want to have a strong economy, but then not on the expense of the environment, I think we'll be good.
Environmental sustainability is important because we still have to live in our cities and things. But I guess we can't really deny what's propping our economy up, right? We have to make money to develop ways to sustain the environment. So I guess finding that balance can be difficult, and it might have to tip one way or the other sometimes.
I think it's really tough here in Canada because the whole world isn't on the same page. So as we become stricter and about how our businesses operate, an industry operates, and we make them clean up their act, we become less competitive in the world market because we have to charge more for our products because we're having to spend money on cleaning things up. I think if the whole world was on the same page with the environment, it would be a way easier job.
I'm under the impression that we're getting a bit beyond the point of striking a balance. I think it's what you're seeing is a need to make a difficult choice, and I'm sort of in favor of canning oil and gas projects in favor of the environment.
I think that a lot of companies that are making all the money on gases and things like that, furnace oils, whatever, are, I hate to say too greedy, but everybody's just trying to get ahead right now. But if everybody could get together and stop with the greed and realize that we do not need that anymore, there's other options. There's solar-powered options. There's, I'm sure, tons of other things that they're making. If they know how to go to space and go to the moon, do this stuff, they can create better things for us here to make it cheaper. But that will take everybody getting together and saying, we want this to stop and we want to live a better life, and that's about it for that, I would say.
You probably need to invest in newer markets like technology, maybe invest in nuclear energy as opposed to fossil fuels, things like that, I'd say.
Economic growth with sustainability, you know, again, I certainly don't have the answer, but there is a balance there somewhere. I don't know exactly where it is. I think I'm one for business, and I think growth is important in any area, whether it's in Yarmouth County or in British Columbia or Ontario. I think there is a balance. For us, the fishing industry is very, very important. A lot of fuel is being spent on the fishing industry and pollution. So, you know, where do you balance that? I think it's going to be hard, but I think there's an answer, and I think we should talk to a lot of people in both in the industries and the environmentalists and try to strike a balance.
While a ban on assault weapons has been implemented in this country, handguns are another story. Responsibility for those lie with the provinces, although many people feel the matter should be handled on a federal level. Handguns can be obtained through a registered vendor, but you'll need to jump through a lot of hoops to get one. So with gun violence unfortunately on the rise in this country, is it time to take handguns out of the equation? Our question.
Should private ownership of handguns be phased out in Canada?
I don't actually think so, because they're all licensed already. People at the police know everybody who has a handgun already. The problem with that particular topic is most of the handguns that are used illegally are not licensed handguns. They're handguns that are smuggled in.
I'm not sure if they should be phased out, because I guess on some level there is a right to protect yourself, and if it is becoming more common, some people might be more comfortable if they have the same weapon as someone who might hurt them. But on the other side, other people are concerned about people having guns and being jumpy with them, and maybe think, oh, that person could be hurt. I have a gun, I'll go protect them, and then they misinterpret something and end up really getting themselves in trouble. So I can see both sides. I don't think I would get rid of it, because I don't think that's a little bit unfair, but regulate it definitely.
Given the amount of violence that we're seeing within our cities, I feel like it's something that needs to be phased out. We have to have a bigger trust in our police force, whether that's going against some of the budget cuts that we've seen against a lot of our police force, but I don't think there is a reason for anyone to own a private handgun within Canada.
Absolutely. I don't really see any need for anybody to own a handgun. I say that as somebody whose father has one because he goes to a shooting range. It's still not something I agree with. It's not something I see as a necessity and a need. It's something that I see the downside far outweighs any benefit to anybody who has one as a hobby.
I'm not a big handgun person. I don't like guns. I don't like violence. We're not, if I can say this, in the U.S. where everyone has the right to bear arms, but it comes to a point as to safety, and there's too much violence on the streets that people are worried about whether they can walk down a sidewalk without being hurt.
100%. I just think for the safety, sometimes they get in the wrong hands. Sometimes they get, I know that you're trying to say they lock them up, they lock the bullets up in different places, but I think it's been proven that crime right now is definitely, obviously on the rise in regards to people during tough times. I know that during economic times, and I know you're going to say that they can easily get a weapon off the streets and anywhere they can, but and the ones that are registered are going to say, I take care of my weapons, and I'm sure they do. I'm sure they do take care of it. But I just think that I don't think there's any need for guns.
Yes, we should not. Honestly, we don't want to turn into the United States here. We want to stay as we are as Canadians. We totally should ban handguns, just simply because I think what's going on in the world today, and you have a lot of youth who don't have the experience, and then they're exposed to a lot of music that they call gangster music. It encourages the youth to see the world from a different perspective. And I think if they take that lifestyle as an example, and if you don't have strong laws to, ban the guns and make sure people don't just get their hands on one easily, it can turn chaotic in the country.
I think everything should be registered. Everything should be registered. The guns are coming across the border easily, obviously. We're seeing that in the last disasters but I think we should try to keep control of our arms and what hands they're being placed in. Maybe, a little further investigation in who's purchasing them.
I don't think there's a lot of need for handguns. If someone uses them for sport and they register them, I'm okay with that, but there's not that many people doing that. So there's not a lot of need for them.
Never. I've always owned rifles. I've owned handguns in the past. And it's always the same thing. They keep hammering and hammering more and more laws on people who are doing nothing wrong in the hopes that the people that are doing something wrong will be tempted to create less criminal activity, and it never works that way.
But I think more bad things come from private ownership of handguns, other than if you're a target shooter. I understand the sport, that's fine, but I don't think, especially in Canada, that one needs that kind of firepower to protect themselves.
I don't think that's a good idea. You see like how many crimes happens in U.S. because they allow people to have guns.
I think so. I don't know if you can phase it all out, but I think the less handguns available, I should say handguns. Handguns, yes. Rifles, net for hunting, no. But I think handguns should be.
From everything I've heard about private gun ownership, I know people are going to hate me for saying this, but I don't like it. So, yeah, I would like them banned.
I believe the majority of our firearms are smuggled across the southern border from the U.S. anyway, especially illegal ones. Whether or not it would work, there'd be pushback. It'd probably need to be done on a longer time frame.
I've never owned a gun or any weapons like that. I don't have any need for one. So for me personally, I don't see why anybody would have to own one unless they're doing security or something like that. Unless things got so crazy that we weren't safe, but I feel safe, so I don't see the need to have them.
Which distinction is held by Liberal MP Hetty Fry, longest-serving female MP, first medical doctor elected to Parliament, first Deputy Prime Minister?
I'm going to go with longest-serving MP, actually.
I'm going to go with medical doctor because I'm biased.
Oh my goodness. First medical doctor.
I say the same thing.
I have no idea, so I will go with first number 2, first medical doctor.
Longest serving female MP, the first option.
First Deputy Prime Minister.
First medical doctor elected to Parliament.
First one, longest serving female MP.
Absolutely correct.
Good guess.
Good for you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Dr. Hetty Fry is the longest-serving female Member of Parliament in Canadian history. She was first elected to Parliament in October 1993, winning Vancouver Centre, a riding which up to that time was held by Prime Minister Kim Campbell. With that election win, she also became the first rookie MP to defeat an incumbent Prime Minister in their own riding. In the 2021 federal election, Dr. Hetty Fry was elected for the 10th consecutive time in her Vancouver Centre riding.
Canada is a wealthy nation, but with a pandemic and the cost of everything rising right across the board, many Canadians are facing more hardships these days than ever before. So we took to the streets to ask Canadians about the obstacles we face as a country. Our question:
what are the biggest challenges facing Canadians today?
I think it goes back to one of your earlier questions, is the balance with regards to what we're going to do with the environment compared to the day-to-day budget concerns. I think there's no question you need, the obvious ones would be focus on health and education. The better that we have an educated populace, the more we can handle those tougher questions and start to make those choices. So I think health and education are the highest things, but also the moral fortitude of the politicians to go through with the plans in order to make those things happen.
I just think like living cost, especially here in New Brunswick, I don't know about the rest of Canada, but the living cost is like, and then the wages are like super low, so it's just hard to make a living, I guess.
Biggest challenges?
I think it's the economics. You know, I think that you know, in a way, the pandemic is helping to say, hey, you know, if you want people to work, you got to pay them.
Yeah, that's true.
And I think that's the economic stability. Is too many people that are just not getting paid the right amount of money for what they do.
I know with me, I'm concerned about what's happening in Ukraine, and I know it's going to be approaching the U.S. There's people already in the U.S. that are going over. I'm wondering how long is it until Canada has to get involved?
I think it's just trying to like pay for bills and stuff like that, especially like taxes is a real big issue right now. And back from like where we're from, Ontario, it's impossible to afford to live anywhere. You can't really have a home until you're at least like of your own, at least until you're in your 30s.
Then you're still in debt.
Yeah, you're still in debt at that point. Yeah, it's bad.
And even like with the government adding a bunch of like carbon taxes, and now we're paying $2
yeah.
for $1.99 for gas, which is insane. And with wages, like they're really low, and to get like a good paying job, you have to go to school, which puts you into debt. And then once you're out of school, you're paying off your debts, unable to get a house because housing markets are just going up and up.
Yeah.
So it's just a spiral of money issues.
Going back to the fuel industry, prices go up. You know, how can single families or single moms, single dads afford to feed their kids healthy food when you pay $6 for a head of lettuce, right? A head of lettuce. You know, lettuce, 99% water, you know, and you're paying $6 for a head of it. There's no way you can have a kid that's healthy. So we need the balance. There's too much richness and there's too many poor. And unfortunately, the poor is tipping the scales, you know.
Biggest challenges would be the cost of gas and groceries, and especially people that have families.
You know, people on, whether it be just homeless people. And there's many out there, and they don't have to be poor. Some people that have some money to pay just can't get a place to stay. So, yes, the housing part of it is so important.
Probably the gas prices. People are upset with that, but everything's hiking up. Chips had hiked up, everything has hiked up. And all these companies that are doing it, they have enough money to be good, and there is no need for it at all, and that should absolutely stop.
Minimum wage is very low, and you end up spending like 3/4 of your paycheck just on rent, and you know, it's just tough. Like people my age, maybe like 40 years ago, already own their own house while living off of minimum wage. You know what I mean? And now it's a bit more difficult. So
for my age group, which is like 19 to 25, I guess it would be COVID. A lot of my peers, including myself, have struggled with online learning and not really being able to get hands-on experience that would give us experience to help us break into the workforce. Because I feel like as the years go on, you need more and more experience just to get entry-level jobs. And I'm getting to the age where I'm not really looking for entry-level. I'm trying to build my career. But if I can't get the little things, how am I really going to move on, you know?
I think some of the biggest challenges were, given the pandemic, it was hard for a lot of people to get experience in a bunch of different industries. But I think the biggest thing is we do have digital platforms available to us. There's a lot of ways of getting your profiles out there and presenting yourself online in a way that may get some retention with some of the companies that you're looking to get involved with.
Money. I genuinely think money. I mean, it sucks coming out of a pandemic, but everyone's trying to. We're coming into a recession. People are coming back into the swing of things, but being slapped in the face with new challenges every day.
For me, it's been finding a stable career. I've had a bunch of different jobs, and I've never felt like I'm really really can expect to have it more than a couple of years before looking somewhere else. And so I've never really had savings. I think that's a big problem for a lot of people.
Our healthcare system is not remotely where it needs to be. Our education system is, in Ontario, I can't speak for the other provinces obviously, our education system is spiraling downward at a rapid pace. I'm not sure that a lot of people understand that piece of it. To me, those are the biggest factors.
Oh, I for sure agree. It's the education and healthcare system. But there's also, I mean, racism needs to be addressed. So many other things. It's hard to sort of focus on one. But I think education would be key because the kids are the future. You teach them, you give them the proper resources, and then hopefully in the future things will gradually get better. That's my hope anyway.
Finally, even though the pandemic was hard on us all, it may have given us the opportunity to look at life through a different lens and make the best of things, no matter what the situation. So we took to the streets to ask Canadians what, if any, silver linings we can take from COVID-19. Our question:
what positives can we take from the pandemic?
I think when you look overall, like the big picture when it came to the pandemic, the positives for me was that communities were coming together. People were concerned about their neighbors' safety and health. Never seen so many masks in my whole entire life. And my background is in healthcare, and everybody was masked up, everybody was concerned, everybody was caring. There was no flu during this pandemic. Yes, we had the COVID, and that's tragic, but no flu. But the big takeaway for me was the fact that neighbor was looking out for neighbor.
I know that in Yarmouth, we made a whole lot of people that were traveling weren't traveling. So I work in an industry where we sell wood and products like that, and we've been flat out because everybody's building instead of traveling and doing all the things that they used to. I'm sure that there's tons of little things that I don't even notice that happened, but some people got a lot closer, and a lot of people, because they were arguing online and going through all that stuff, got a lot more distance. But I learned people were going to put their opinions out there, that's for sure. I had a rough time at the beginning, but I'm glad it's over. So
we definitely have to continue sanitizing and wearing masks where there's a lot of people in that. So, but other than that, I think that about covers. Positives,
Positive, I think there's a lot of positives. First of all, I think there was a lot of unknowns 2 years ago, a lot of unknowns, but having lived through the 2 years, I find that I'm wearing a mask more often. I wash my hands way more, and you know what? We never got a cold, never got the flu. So you know what? I guess there was a lot of germs going through, so I think there's a lot of positives there, and I've learned.
I would say that a lot of people, families, are learning to spend time with their children, and you just can't let them sit with a screen in front of them all the time. That you have to get out, you have to keep active, do things, or your mental health is going to be in grave trouble.
The positives from the pandemic are that we now know what matters, I think, a little bit more, so we can hopefully move forward with a little bit more consciousness about what we're doing and who we want to see and what we want to spend our time doing. So once stuff like that's all taken away from you, don't have options. You have a lot of time to think about what really matters. So I think that's one of the only positives.
Well, the positives, I think, were how quickly neighborhoods started to get together, how quickly people started to look out for each other. Let's hope we remember that when things go back to a little bit more normal way. You know, let's just start to look out for your buddy a little bit more normal.
Learning how to work alone, learning how to work independently, and not feeling like you need to be out at all times of the day doing crazy things.
I've definitely become better at reaching out to people that I don't see very often. During the pandemic, my social life was primarily a set of video calls, and so it didn't matter if someone lived in Ottawa or lived, say, in Japan. I'd be reaching out and scheduling video calls. So I have better relationships with some of my more distant relatives.
We've been more conscious about our health. I think maybe we've been more caring about one another than maybe we were before.
I mean, I think it really like humanized everyone and realized how equal we all are, because COVID doesn't discriminate. It affects all of us. And that just, I feel like, brought us together in a way, although it's obviously an awful happening, but yeah.
For me personally, I was very fortunate. I live close to my parents, my children and I, and my husband. I feel like it developed closer bonds. It gave us an opportunity to have time together that we normally wouldn't have had, and we tried to make the best of it. So I'm hoping when my children are growing up, when they look back, it's not this horrible, traumatic experience for them, but hopefully we managed to bring some, silver lining into the cloud for them.
I think the biggest silver lining we can take from the pandemic is it allowed us to take a step back and realize how important interactions are with us from a day-to-day basis, and just human relationships, and staying away from a lot of everything that's available to us online. Everything is, you can order food without leaving your house. There's honestly not a lot of reason to leave your house, and just getting out there and making some personal relationships can avoid a lot of things such as anxiety, which is really important.
To be honest, I'm thankful for life, and I think people should be thankful that, if you made it out through it, whether you're vaccinated or not, it's a matter as to, I'm happy that I'm breathing another day. You're with other people, you have the relationships that you had, and you're here to go on.
Thanks for watching this episode of Outburst on CPAC. If you have any comments about this show or any other show, you can find us on social media. You can also find us on our website at www.cpac.ca. I'm Glenn McGuinness, and on behalf of my colleagues at the Cable Public Affairs Channel, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.